How long can you sit and study? Or maybe the real question is, how long should you sit and study? I talk to students all the time that say, I studied for 8 hours a day, or 10 hours a day, or 12 hours a day. But were they really studying effectively? Was that meaningful time? I mean, how much are they actually retaining after sitting there for 8, 10, 12 hours and just poring over this information? Is there even a connection at all between how long you study and how much you remember? Today in Elevate, we're going to talk about a technique called the Pomodoro Technique about studying. It's going to teach you how to study much more efficiently, effectively, and be more productive. I'm Joshua Olson. I'm co-founder of Elevate. I'm also assistant program director and assistant professor of nurse anesthesiology. And Elevate exists for one reason, and that's to help you succeed in your CRNA program and pass the board exam on the first try. The Pomodoro Technique is a method in which you break up your study sessions into smaller chunks and make it more digestible and more focused. The word Pomodoro is actually, I'm probably saying it wrong, Pomodoro is actually Italian for the word tomato. The originator of this technique actually used a timer that was shaped like a tomato. Thus, that's where they got the name Pomodoro. In the Pomodoro technique, you study for very focused amounts of time. Usually, the original time was 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. You don't have to stick to this time forever, but this is usually a good place to start. 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. The purpose of this method is twofold. The first is to really focus your attention. During your 25-minute study session, you shut off all your notifications, you put your phone away, you turn off your email and take your watch off, or whatever you have to do to make yourself completely distraction-free. Turn your TV off, everything. So you're just focused for that 25 minutes of time. So instead of 8 or 10 or 12 hours of kind of meandering time where you go back and forth in and out of focus, you're very focused for that 25 minutes of time with no distractions whatsoever. This leads to much more effective and productive study time. The second purpose of this method is to break up your study time into small chunks. Did you know that you remember the most what you study at the beginning and at the end of a study session? When you start a session, you're more likely to remember that, and when you end the session, you're more likely to remember what you just studied right before you end it. So instead of one long continuous study session that's kind of all over the place for 8 hours a period of time, with the Pomodoro technique, you have a lot of starts and stops, right? A lot of peaks and valleys. This allows you to have a lot more starts and stops in your brain too. Your brain can shut off, take a break, process the information, and then come back to it again. So how do you do it? How do you start this technique? Well, I mean, it's not that complicated, really. You could buy a fancy timer. There's a bunch of these out there, these Pomodoro timers, and there's a lot of study apps out there that have timers built into them. I've mentioned before my students use something called Forest, and it's an app called Forest where you, as you study, as you put your time in on this Pomodoro timer, you build a forest and trees, and you can actually compete with friends on that. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But you don't really need anything fancy. You can just use any timer that you have, on your phone or on your watch, or an old kitchen timer, an egg timer, whatever you want. A 25-minute timer should do the trick. So you sit down, you shut off all the distractions, everything you possibly can think of, your phone, your TV, your notifications if you're using your computer, the sound effects, the badges that pop up. Turn all that off if you're using your computer to study. If you're sitting there looking at your screen, you don't want badges popping up and sounds going off and distracting you. This needs to be focused time. TV shut off, radio shut off. I guess nobody uses the radio anymore, but your AirPods off, everything off, distraction free, anything that will distract you, and make this very, very focused time. Set your time for 25 minutes. All you do during that time is focus your study. Just sit and study, and don't do anything else. Don't get distracted. Just focus until your 25-minute timer goes off. Then, when your timer goes off, you give yourself a 5-minute break. 5 minutes to kind of check your email, respond to your texts, whatever you need to do in that 5 minutes to give your brain a break. But don't take too long. These are supposed to be short breaks. Short break to kind of give yourself a chance to digest it, and then come back to it again. Give yourself a 5 minutes. So there's 25 minutes of focus time, 5 minutes of unfocused, relaxed time to give your brain a break, and then come right back to it after that 5-minute break. Start your next 25-minute timer. And I recommend that when you start the next session, that you review what you studied in the last session. So session 1, you study, take your 5-minute break, and then session 2, you're going to review real quickly what you studied in session 1. This repetition is a great way to learn, and you can do this over and over and over again. This allows for a lot more focused time. So instead of spending 8, 10, 12 hours of meandering time, who knows what you learned and how focused you were, you're much more efficient now. This allows your brain to really retain the information long term, whereas your long study sessions, that aren't focused, you really have no idea how well you're retaining it. It's hard to do that. So this is a really great way to focus your time and make it much more efficient. So that's it. That's the Pomodoro Technique. 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. Try it today. You'll find that as you first start doing this, it's going to be hard for you. It's going to be hard to put everything away and start studying very focused like that. But as you do it more and more, you're going to get better and better at it and find that your brain is really able to focus a lot more than you thought without all those distractions pulling you away constantly. And you'll find your time much more effective. So just keep practicing. Start today. Just keep practicing. If you've used this before, maybe make a comment below. And how has it been helpful for you? Maybe not helpful for you. What apps are you using to maybe promote this technique? If this kind of content is helpful for you, we'd appreciate if you subscribed. And remember, we exist for one reason, and that's to help you pass and get through your CRNA program and pass the board exam on the first try.